You guys are pretty different in a lot of ways, but one of the biggest similarities, right, is part of the reason why you were drawn to this situation was from moments like the ones you guys just had and challenges like the one you're about to take now. Do you think you guys bonded over that through the year in any ways?
Yeah, for sure. There definitely is. We sit by each other in the locker room, on the road and at home. So, we've had a lot of discussions, right, over the regular season and now the postseason, just figuring it out, right? We're both here. We're both trying to, get our names back in the good graces of the basketball guys, right? And, just show what we still can do. So, there's definitely something we want.
Do you feel like you're his big brother in any kind of way?
No.
You're watching you guys? No, you don't have that?
No, I'm not his big brother, but I'm just, somebody that, who he respects. He sees who goes out there and not only, preaching, I'm actually doing what I'm preaching, right? I'm not just not preaching. I'm out there with him in the midst of it, battling with him, going through, adversity with him, right? And I think that draws a lot of respect from one another in that aspect when you're going to battle with somebody, they're struggling, while they're struggling, they're out there with you trying to help you get to yours.
Marcus, you're a former Defensive Player of the Year. Where does the challenge of guarding Shai rank?
Number one. I think we all know that, right? He does a really good job of, getting to the free throw line. And he's mastery, right? So, that's going to be a challenge for me, not just me, but everybody on the team is making sure, we stay out of foul trouble and we keep him off the line as much as possible and just continue to show your hands. It's tough, but it can be done. It's just going to take, a lot of effort from everybody, and we got to stay together.
How do you prepare for somebody like that? Is part of it like mental gaming? Like, what do you do personally to get yourself ready for that?
You just go out there and play, You got two competitors like that, one on the offensive side and one on the defensive side. It definitely makes for a great matchup. But yeah, there's nothing you really can do. You just got to go out there, look at the film, try to, give up one thing for two things, not everything that he's going to get. You're not going to stop it all, but you're going to just try to do your best to make every bucket and every possession form as tough as possible.
JJ talked yesterday about how the Thunder, they don't foul a lot, and whether he meant they really don't foul a lot or they don't get called for a lot of fouls, it's essentially them not getting called. How much of a challenge is it for you guys to not get caught up in what essentially they can do?
I think it's a challenge for everybody. We're not perfect, we're humans, right? And we let our emotions sometimes get the best of us in certain situations, but with a team like that, yeah, whether they foul or not, it's not getting called. So, there's nothing you can do. You got to control what you can control. If it's not getting called, you got to figure out how to adjust and play through it. And that just comes with being, the defending champs and, a good defensive team and a really great team doing it together. So that comes with it. That's the perks of it. So you got to figure out a way to, to counterbalance that, but that's it. So. It's a challenge, but it's a challenge that we're up for, and we're excited to get ready to get started.
Marcus, what do you on those 10-0, 12-0 runs? What does it take to kind of lower the pulse while you guys are on the court so you're not making unforced errors on those moments?
Just composure, sticking to the game plan. Going in, understanding the strategy that we have, and sticking with it. Understanding that they're going to go on those runs. Like I said, they're the defending champs, the best team in the league. So it's inevitable to stop those runs, but you try your best not to let it spill over and go from 10 to 20. And just make sure that when they do go on that run, you definitely got to stop the bleeding by getting organized and offense and making sure you can make a play.
Marcus, they're going back to Shai, like the fact that he has such a lethal mid-range jumper, like how does that affect how a defense can address what he's able to do? Like against Houston, they struggle with their mid-range, especially with Kevin not playing. Like how does that extra layer, being able to score in that in-between range, affect a team's defense?
I mean, he's an MVP, right? We know it. He's been doing this for a while now. We know what he's capable of, and it makes him very dangerous to be that type of three-level scorer, right? And it definitely, it brings its own challenges. But like I said, you're not going to win every battle. You're not going to stop everything. You're not going to slow everything down. You got to be willing to give up for something, and you got to pick the poison.
Marcus, what do you take away from how the group played without Luka against Houston, as well as during certain parts of the regular season that can apply to this series?
I would probably say, for us, I think it's, when you got your two players, top dogs, and then, one comes back and you still got, one out. It's a sense of heightenedness for everybody in every aspect of our games, right? We don't have a guy that you can lean on and just throw the ball to, go one-on-one, get a bucket, right? So everybody has to pick up on everything that they do. You know, you have to be better scoring, you have to be better, you know, efficiently with your shots, you have to be better with the ball. You know, you just have to be overall better, right? And I think that, you know, as much as we see that now, we feel bad, and you would think that it hurts us not having them, but it actually helps, right? Because it forces guys to elevate their game to a whole nother level.
How are you guys better? Charges that you drew in Game 6, and obviously you've been doing that your whole career. Just because that's a skill, you know. So what goes into knowing where to be, knowing where to anticipate where the defender is going to, or the offensive play is going to be?
Instincts for sure, but also, you know, KYP, knowing your personnel, knowing guys' tendencies, knowing what plays are you know, trying to get to in certain situations, and just being there and trusting. You know, I don't always get the call. I'm not perfect, but trusting my instincts and trusting the preparation. And, you know, I've been doing my work. I've been doing the film. Been doing this, and just letting it happen.
How are you guys better equipped to play OKC this week than you were at the beginning of April when you had those 2 losses?
Those 2 losses, right? You got our ass kicked, rightfully so, right? And only from there we had to build. You know, after those 2 losses, we had to figure some things out with ourselves, with the team, and as you can see, we started to kind of rise in the right direction. So it's definitely going to be a challenge. We understand it, we know it, but it's going to be a fun one for sure.
Thanks, Marcus.
Well, we couldn't learn a lot from 3 of those games because we were god awful. You know, I think bigger picture, just a general thing with them is they're really good at runs, and part of that is how good their defense is, their ability to create turnovers. The live ball turnovers really kill you, and they don't get out in transition a ton, but when they do, they're the best in the NBA in terms of PPP. So limiting their runs, and I think, you know, it's like, I know Rick Carlisle is like the master of that, is like the quick timeout. I've already told the staff, already told the players, like, I've got to be more diligent than I normally am. I like my timeouts. I like going into the 4th quarter with 4 timeouts. I like having 2 in the last 30 seconds. I don't think you have the luxury of like worrying about that because the game can get away from you so quick because of how explosive they are when they go on their runs. And they do that to everybody. They did it to Phoenix in the 1st round. They did it to us in the regular season. Even in their losses, they had on average 8.3 scoring even in their losses. So it's what they do, and so mitigating the 12 to 15 point runs, I think, is really important.
I'll say the fans and the media, you know, just everything around it, you know, just that whole atmosphere and that just being in that, you know, having that attention on you again, and, you know, everybody watching every little detail, and, you know, every little possession, every little thing is so important. And, you know, there's so many things that can change in the game. And I just love it, you know, this the attention to detail and just being consistent, you know, it's true professionalism. You know, this is where people make their names, and, you know, this is where people get to see you play for real and, you know, on TV if they haven't seen you in the regular season. So it's a big stage, and I'm truly happy, you know, to be back. Yeah, you can't hear yourself. It's definitely the Thunder for a reason. You know, their fans are thunderous. You know, you can hear the floor shaking, the bleachers. You can't hear a play call. You know, you got to be super dialed in. You know, the defending champs, and, you know, their fans been in atmospheres and, you know, hype games, and, you know, they ready for their team, you know, to do their thing. So we just got to come in super prepared and, you know, just dial out all the noise and just come there and play together.
What is your role? Your role offensively? You know, it was one way against the Houston Rockets. You're going up against the best defense in the league. As a big against those bigs in OKC, what do you need to dial in and focus on to have success against the Thunder?
Playing bigger. I don't know. You know, just being relentless on the glass. You know, protecting the rim as much as possible, letting them out my paint. You know, it's going to be big with me protecting that paint this series, where, you know, they really generate and touching the paint, and, you know, them having 50-plus points in the paint. You know, they're a really unstoppable team. So I'm really just looking forward to protecting the paint as best as I can and staying on the floor as long as possible. That's about it.